Welcome to the Hornet School, Lesson 2, Navigation. First, let's get familiar with the cockpit of the Hornet. The main things we'll be using during navigation will be the 3 screens and the keypad in the middle. These are known as the 2 DDIs, the AMPCD, and the upfront controller. We recommend putting the HSI, the main tool we'll be using today, on your right DDI to prevent any warnings from covering up any important details. The lower AMPCD has a bit more functionality than the upper 2 DDIs, but that'll be covered in a later lesson. The UFC is responsible for a number of controls, from navigation to comms, as well as all controls for your HUD. It'll also control the ILS, which is the landing system used by the carriers, data link, which has 2 pages, and this connects the jet to all the other jets in the area. Beacon, which is used by ATC, and then we have the Autopilot and IFF functions. IFF is also used by ATC typically, and Autopilot is pretty self-explanatory. Let's head down to the ready room and take a closer look at the concepts that we'll be applying to these tools. Top left of your DDI, click inside of there, you can see that your navigation, you can click on a number of different things to find your way. Typically, I use GPS for more accurate headings. You can also update any of these frequencies. The scale button will scale the map and the size in and out. Mark points will be covered later in this lesson. The data page contains most of the functions we'll be using today. We have the AC panel, which has a number of functions, the most important of which today will be the lat, long, decimal, and minutes. We also have all the ways we scroll between the waypoints and select them, our sequencing, and on the left-hand side is a number of functions to lock on to different navigational tools. First, let's lock on to a tacan. On your upfront controller, click TCN, then on. Tacans are a military radar equipment. If you zoom in on maps, you'll find these little ninja star looking symbols. Those are tacans. For Batumi, we're looking for channel 16. There are also a number of portable tacans that can be placed throughout the map. We use them at Krasnodar, which is 36 X-ray. These tacans are placed alongside the runway to simulate the functionality of a placed tacan. So again, we'll open up our tacan. We'll type in 36 X-ray, hit enter. You'll see a little symbol has appeared on the HSI showing our tacan and the direction and heading to that tacan. In the upper left corner of the DDI, you'll see which heading, distance, current time, and the name of said tacan. Let's change our course line. You see nothing happens. Let's box tacan and now set a course line off of that tacan. Course lines will only work off of a waypoint or a tacan. The runway heading here is 39er. Let's do the same thing now with a waypoint. See, we box it, change the course line, functionality is the exact same. Now let's scroll through waypoints. First, we need to box waypoints, and you'll see the same information appears on the upper right corner as with the tacan: heading, distance, time to, etc. Now you see in the jet we don't have anything programmed in currently past waypoint 0, so nothing will appear. So let's go into our data page and enter in some waypoints. So let's go to the map, find somewhere to fly to, get some coordinates, and go from there. So I'm going to hit left alt, left click on my mouse, and you see this brings up the coordinates box. So let's go back to the jet. Hit F1, and now you see I have all the different types of coordinates that I can work with for that location. So now let's go to the jet, play around with these. So we're going to do UFC position, and we're going to start with just lat long standard, northerly. 4-4, 3-4, 2-2. Easterly, 380041. Be sure to change your elevation, and if you're working in feet or meters. For today's example, we'll do feet. And now you see the information is updated on the HSI. Now, if we want to add this waypoint to our sequence, we're going to go to Sequence UFC on the bottom left, Insert, and then whichever number we want to add this to. In our instance, it'll be 1, and then hit Enter. You can also reverse this and do Delete and remove waypoints from your sequence. The jet can store up to 3 separate sequences and up to 60 preset waypoints. But remember, one of your preset waypoints will be used for bulls, which we will also cover in a later video. Next up, let's go to lat long precise. So we start with northerly, 4-4, 3-4, 2-2. But we see that doesn't quite match up with what we're seeing. We need to change from lat long decimal minutes to decimal seconds. Let's try that same waypoint again. Northerly, 4-4, 3-4, 2-2. 5-0. Easterly, 3-8, 0-0, 4-1, 87. Elevation, 72 feet. Let's try it now with minutes. Let's go back into the AC page. Position, northerly, 4-4, 3-4, 0.375. Easterly, 3-8, 0-0, 0.697. Elevation, 72 feet. Alright, so those are your basic forms of navigation, but we have one more that the military uses, which is going to be grids. And as you zoom in, you can see these smaller grids appear on the map. We're looking for DK 21524. So we're looking for the DK grid. So we're going to go to UFC, make sure we're in precise, and click grid. You'll see a new menu or a new image pops up on the HSI. You'll be using the controller on the back of the throttle to control this. Scroll to wherever you want to fly. Click that button and you'll see it underlines. It'll then eventually take you back to this page. Now just start entering in the numbers for the grid. In this case, it will be 21524 35983. .72 feet. And you can see the HSI has updated. A small trick to know with grids is sometimes people will call out 6-digit grid numbers. If you go non-precise and do the same thing, we're going to lop off the last 2 numbers from each set of grid coordinates. So in this case, it would be 215359. Elevation 72 feet. And you can see it's not going to be quite as accurate, but we'll still get you in the ballpark. A little trick to note, if you're already in precise mode and someone gives you a 6-digit grid, you can simply replace the last 2 digits in each grouping with 00 to simulate a precise grid coordinate. If your target is further off the map than you can see, you can simply use your DDI or the controller to scroll over to the cardinal directions and scroll around. That covers all of our basic coordinates and how we enter them into the jet. If we go to the map, we see that there's some other things we can use to navigate with. These are called NDBs, non-directional beacons. If we tune into their frequency and go to our HSI, and we then change to ADF 1 or 2, you'll see a little circle appears on the HSI. How these function is typically you'll have a small line of them that you can connect to as you approach an airport. They won't show you the direction that you are flying, they simply show that you're flying towards the beacon, or where the beacon is in relation to you. Typically, these are used at civilian runways, some of the busier commercial airways. We don't use this terribly often in DCS. Other thing to note, once you've switched on ADF, you will get a static noise through your radios as it attempts to connect to these NDBs. Next up, now that we have a waypoint, we can designate that waypoint. And you'll see it becomes a target. Now, using our J-hammocks, we can look around and spot our waypoint or target visually just by moving our head. You'll also get an arrow representing where that target is in relation to you. Very handy when targeting moving targets. Alright, so now that we're in the air, let's cover a few of our basic autopilot functions. Obviously, we have ATC, or automatic throttle control. Works just like cruise control in your car. Pick a speed or a Mach number, and it will lock to it. But remember, Mach changes with altitude. Next up, we have attitude hold. Attitude hold will do just as it says. It will hold your attitude wherever you place it. It's not a perfect system. You will see a little bit of drift, but it will generally lock you in where you tell it. The first big notch is a half rate turn. The second big notch is a full rate turn. Alright, now that we're at a good altitude, we'll hit Baro Alt. Currently we're in barometric altitude readings. The Hornet's equipped with a radar on the bottom that can actually read exactly how far off the ground it is. So if we switch to rad, or radar, you'll see an R appear next to your altitude. This indicates if you are in baro or radar. Radar altimeter will work regardless of which setting you are in. Next up, we'll use tacans, and we'll show you how we couple up to something. Coupling will not line you up to a target, but rather fly directly towards that target. So now you can see, as we went into this, the autopilot is pretty aggressive. This is a fighter jet after all. So be aware of that when you're flying with your wingman. Something you can do to help with this, go to your data page, AC, you'll see a label that says TAC Blim. Change this to Nav Blim. This will change it from a more tactical turning to a more navigational turning. At lower speeds and lower altitudes, the autopilot will still be aggressive as it is fighting gravity. So now looking at the HSI, you can see some of the symbology. We can see where the tacan is and the heading to the tacan. And you can see here the jet will begin to roll out on the target. As I said, will not line you up, but will point you directly at it. So right now we're coming in perpendicular to the runway at Krasnodar. Be cognizant of this as you're coupling up on your targets. Another thing to note is if you have a course line entered in on the couple, the jet will try to follow the course line past the coupling point. It will not guide you in as a true autopilot would. And you can see here, we're going to do the same thing with waypoints. Box it, hit couple, everything comes up, same as on the tacans. So if we uncouple, click auto, waypoint, sequence, and auto become boxed. And if we hit couple again, it will simply follow a list of pre-selected waypoints. In our instance, we only have one target selected, so there's not much to show as far as our sequence. But if you were to enter, say, 10 to 15 of these, you would see a long chain showing the sequence. Another thing we can look at is the fuel management and some of the things we're going to use while navigating. A big one is the F-Pass. The F-Pass functions very similarly to your fuel economy screen on your car. It basically is going to tell you how much gas you have at your current range, altitudes, etc. The handy thing is at the bottom. It will tell you your optimums. So therefore, if you're looking for range or distance, or you can use endurance, which will be how long you can fly, you can shoot for those numbers to gain maximum gas efficiency. You'll note if we click climb, it boxes, and we see a new set of number appear above our indicated speed on the HUD. If we achieve this speed and then pull back aggressively on the stick and do our best to maintain that displayed speed compared to our indicated speed, we'll achieve an F-Pass climb, which will be the most fuel efficient way of climbing. And as you can see, it's about a 15-degree climb. And the whole climb, we're going to do our best to keep those numbers as close to each other as possible. You can see on the right-hand side of our HUD, our ascent rate is over 12,000 feet per minute, meaning we would reach Angels 36 in less than a 3-minute climb. And here we are leveling out at Angels 29. You can see our speed is still well above 300 knots. We've not stalled out during this climb one bit. While there's still lots to learn about navigation, we hope that this intro serves you well and gives you a good footing to start finding your way around in DCS. Thank you for watching Lesson 2, Navigation from the Hornet School. If you have any questions, feel free to join our Discord. We're available to help any pilots, new or experienced.